Hi, it's Mrs. Green. We're going to do a lesson on multiplying integers. So I put this little get help with multiplying integers. Little guy here. This is a picture of the rules for multiplying integers. On the next page I'll show you the words, but this is a picture. It might be handy if you draw a picture. So you might notice that the rule is if you have the same sign, the result, the product, when you multiply is positive, and when you have different signs, one positive, one negative, the result is always negative. The product is always negative. So what that would look like in words, let's go to the next page. Same sign, product is positive, different signs, product is negative. So you should have that in your key information. And then you can draw the picture. Same sign, different signs. I've also seen pictures of a triangle. Sometimes teachers will have you draw a triangle, and I think it works like this. If you put minus signs at the bottom and a plus sign at the top, then whenever you are looking at the problem, you would look for the two signs that are in the problem, and then the third piece of the triangle would be the product. So if you had two signs that are a plus and a minus, then that third sign would be the sign of the product. Or if you had two that are both minus, then they're both the product is positive. It works. You can't use it for plus plus, but most people remember what plus plus is always going to be plus. Alrighty, next slide is going to tell us some. So in addition to writing the rule for your key information, I also want you to write down some properties. So here we have 2 out of the 3 properties that I want you to write down. So leave yourself some space for the third, which is on the next page. The first is the zero property of multiplication, also sometimes known as the multiplication property of 0. Sometimes the words are in a different order, but the point is that it's a multiplication property because we're talking about multiplying integers, and it has to do with 0. And the rule here says that the product of a number and 0 is always 0. So that's the rule. So we've got it written down in words and numbers and algebra. So I like to have it 3 ways if we can get that 3 ways. You might need to pause this screen because this is a lot of writing. The second property I want you to copy down is the multiplicative identity property, or the identity property of multiplication, which is covered over here. So the identity property of multiplication involves the multiplicative identity of 1. And it says that anytime you multiply a number and 1, the number 1 preserves the identity of that number, and it remains the same. So if I'm the number 4, there's a number I can multiply by myself to keep my identity. And that number is 1. So 1 is known as the multiplicative identity, and then its property looks like this. So we've got it in words, numbers, and algebra. So all 3 ways in your notes, please. The third property is the closure property of multiplication. The closure property of multiplication. And it says closure is like almost completing a circle. It says that if you have an integer, and you're multiplying by another integer, that the product will also be an integer. So anytime you have a closure property, they're talking about types of numbers that you're operating on. If you operate on those 2 types of numbers and you still get that same family of numbers, then then closure has worked. It's kind of a closed, it's almost like an exclusive club. It's closed off. But if you multiply and you get some other number that's not an integer, like a decimal or a fraction, then it wouldn't be closed for multiplication. So copy that third property down, and then we're going to go on to the example problems. So my 3 example problems are written down here, and they're illustrating the rules that we had. So I'm illustrating these rules about the same sign and different signs, and what that would look like. So illustrating those situations, so here we've got 3 times 4, but since we had one negative and one positive, we end up with a negative 12. Here we've got 6 times 3, but because we have the same sign, we end up with a positive 18. And on number C, you're going to go from left to right, and you're going to do it in 2 steps. So negative 4 times 2, that's 1 negative, 1 positive, that gives me a negative 8. And then negative 8 times negative 3, same sign, gives me a positive 24. So I'm multiplying left to right using the rules that we talked about in the first screen. So then you have 4 U-Try application problems to do. Okay, that's it.